Welcome to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. I am Rasmeet, and today my guest is Kelly O'Hurt, who is here to talk about her dark night of soul, how it reshaped who she was herself to be, and how it became the source of her novel series, Arcanum. Kelly, welcome.
Thank you, Rasmeet. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, Kelly, before we go in, tell me what does the first hour of your day looks like now? Like after everything you have lived through, the small things, the ritual, the parts of the morning that you protect for yourself.
So you want to know about the first thing I do in the morning?
Yeah, right. Some rituals that you perform or something that you just can't miss.
I do try to have quiet time every morning. Some people may call it meditation. But it's very important to me that I spend time just in quiet first thing in the morning.
Right.
And that's sacred time for me. I really try not to miss that. And that just sets the cadence of my day. I really like how I feel. If I don't do it, I can tell.
Okay. And I want to start with a misconception. The phrase dark night of the soul gets used a lot. So often to describe a bad week or a hard month. But what you went through was something much more deeper and much longer than that. So tell me what is, the part people get wrong about in real dark night of the soul. What does it actually looks like that the culture, short and never captures?
Yeah, so I have to agree with you. There are certain phrases like dark night of the soul that are used. I mean, I understand why. I mean, if you're having a bad week, you're having a bad week, but it's not a dark night of the soul. It's just a bad week.
Mm. Yeah.
To me, a dark night of the soul is an event in your life, a sequence of events, a chapter, if you will, of your life that changes the course of your life. And in order to survive the change, you are challenged greatly to show up for yourself in a way that you hadn't yet prior.
Yeah, that's right. And when you were inside that part, what was the thing that surprised you the most?
Well, mine started with a health crisis. And, for anyone and the millions of people in your audience that have been through a health crisis, it's a really, really frightening experience.
Mm.
And
Mm.
in that health crisis, I realized I was no longer happy in my marriage and that my marriage was over. So there was a lot of foundational truths, the trust in my body, a
Mm.
marriage, which is something that is so foundationally strong and gives us such a feeling of safety, that was just stripped away from me. So my dark night of the soul was so profoundly difficult, but it really introduced me back to myself and what my capacity is, my inner strength, my willingness to show up for myself and not compromise this one life that we get to experience and as Kelly O'Hearn. So it was my greatest gift, no question.
Right. And hearing you describe the inside of yours really reframed something for me because about, how to talk about it at all. So, moving forward to the next question, let's just go underneath. Like, when the architect of an identity comes down, it almost never starts with one event. There are, years of small signals or small refusals, small misalignments that finally accumulate into the unraveling. So, what was actually coming apart underneath and in the years before the Dark Knight arrived in your conscious awareness?
It's such a good question, Rasmeet. It's so true. As I always say, the call of the soul begins years before
Mm.
generally a dark night may occur. Now,
Mm.
what that means is exactly what you say. You start to get a niggle, an awareness, certain moments,
Yes.
clarity that you're like, wait a second, whoa, whoa. I, and I knew there was something wrong in my marriage.
Mm.
And, but I had young children and I really loved my family. I loved the four of us. And
Mm.
so it was very hard to kind of disentangle it all. And to be honest, Rasmeet, I didn't want to hear it. When the niggles would come and those gentle nudges would push against me, I didn't want to hear it. So I ignored it. And of
Mm.
course, when you ignore the call of the soul, or you ignore the divine, or you ignore God or the universe, or whatever you want to call it, they will up the volume of the nudge. So
Right.
eventually I manifested a physical illness in order to get my attention.
Mm.
And
Okay.
I mean, that's really how it happened. But I knew for a few years before that something was wrong.
Okay. So, I want to bring this out of the cosmic frame and into the texture of an ordinary day inside a dark night. Because the dramatic version everyone talks about is not really what living inside it is like. It is mostly small, the dishes, the coffee, the moments of going through motions while something underneath has gone silent. So, what did it actually look like in your ordinary day, in your ordinary days while the unraveling was happening?
Well, like you said, you really focus on the mundane of your life. You just keep putting one foot in front of the other. As I mentioned, I had children that needed their mother, and they needed the best version of me possible to show up. And that was a really wonderful gift because I didn't have to think about it all day. I didn't have to dwell on it all day. I'm a very high functioning, high energy person. So my days, I may have been a bit emotionally flat. Um, but my days were full of activities and, and travel and, all the things that I enjoy in my life.
Okay. And tell me something more about, the going through part. Like, what did it actually feel like from the inside?
Well, when I was in the throes of it, in the worst chapter, in the worst time of it, I mean, there was great fear there, because the unknown was just staring at me and it was just so vast. Uh, so I really sought out uh, new habits, new interests. That's when I started to meditate. I started mindfulness practices. I tried to really take care of my body and eat well and get good sleep. Because fear can be paralyzing. And I did not, and I knew that if I succumbed to it, it would be much harder to get started again. So I just kept trying to bring in new.
Right. And that really reframes something for me, honestly, because most people imagine a dark night as a dramatic stretch of weeping or something, but the real thing is much quieter sometimes, much more ordinary. And that ordinariness is its own kind of grief. So let's get practical now. Like the people listening are in their own versions of this right now. Not the same shape, but somehow in the same situation. So, that's slowly unraveling the loss of the old self, the not yet arrived of the new one. So, what is that practice that actually held you through? Not the headline practice, the real one, the small one that, you came back to even on the worst days.
Well, to be honest, for me, it was during this time that I discovered the tarot, and tarot cards for me, regardless of whether you believe in the validity of them, were such a
Yeah.
wonderful focus for me to spend an hour and a half on every day, learning the language, just detaching from my reality. So I would really encourage people, find something that interests you. It doesn't have to be a fascination, but learn a new language, teach yourself to cook. Something that you can focus on that requires your attention and a distraction to it that allows you to completely, like, detach from your reality, because there's a lot of peace in that hour, in that 45 minutes, hour and a half, however long you stay in it. That was, a lifesaver for me.
Right, because there's something in what you just said that I really want to hold on for a second, because the practice that holds you through the dark nights of your days is almost never the impressive one. Sometimes it is small, almost an embarrassing one that you do at 6 in the morning or 5 in the morning, because something inside you knew that it was a lifeline before your mind could explain why. So the last big question, because the old self does not just leave quietly, it comes back, um, somewhere, sometimes, especially when the new life feels uncertain or hard sometimes. So there must have been moments, writing where the voice of the old you tried to walk you out of it or told you to go back to something safer, to something more recognizable. So how do you handle those moments now? Or how do you stay loyal to who you are becoming when you were first trying to recruit you back?
Yeah, it's true. You know, eh, we're constantly programmed to try to avoid change, especially change that involves pain, and hardship and struggle.
Mm.
So it's true. The old self does come around a lot, trying to lure you back, in order to, get really save you from the pain that you're in and the struggle that you're in. So, but for me, I mean, I'm just a very decisive person. And even though I was in a difficult time, I knew it would get better. I had
Mm.
to see it through. And
Yeah.
I was committed. There's a point in time where you do have that moment where you could turn around and go back.
Mm.
But, once you commit, you have to see it through. And I promise you, you get through
Mm.
it and it gets better and it's worth it.
Yes. Yes. And I think a lot of people listening, especially the ones midway through their own unraveling, are going to recognize that voice, naming it for what it is instead of mistaking it for freedom is most of the work. And if someone listening right now is in the middle of their own dark night of the soul and is afraid that they will never come back to themselves, what do you want them to hear slowly?
Well, you have to understand something. The dark night of the soul doesn't mean you're away from yourself, it's a part of you. So welcome it. Ask it to teach you what you need to know. Don't think of it as a momentary blip in the existence of you that you will come out of and leave behind. No, there's great grace and dignity in having the courage to walk that path. But it's one of the most beautiful parts of me is that part of me that was strong enough to endure that. So I love that part of me, even though it was hard. So I encourage everybody, love the part of you that is struggling, just like you would an injured child. If you saw or an injured animal that you were like would care for to nurse it back to health, like really care for yourself as you're going through this because it's you. I mean, you it's not a separate you. It's not a like momentary blip of you. It's just you.
Right. And Kelly, if someone listening is standing at the wreckage of an old identity and starting to wonder, like, is it actually possible on the other side? What is the one thing you want them to walk away with this podcast today?
It's absolutely possible on the other side. Yes. 100% yes. If someone in your audience or many people in your audience are even asking that question, just the ask of that question tells me, yes, go, take that step, be brave. It'll be worth it.
Right. And Kelly, where can our listeners find you and your Arcanum series?
So my Arcanum book series, I have a website called arcanumtheseries.com. And I'm also you can, watch me and my tarot readings as well as my updates about my books on my Instagram account at Kelly O'Hearn Author, and that's the same at Kelly O'Hearn Author on TikTok.
Okay. So there was a moment in this conversation where Kelly, you talked about staying loyal to who you are and you're becoming. I just want our listeners to hold that one. So thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you, Rasmeet. It was a joy to talk to
Thank you. Same here. And to everyone listening, the Dark Night is not the end of the story. It is often where the actually story finally begins. So we'll see you on the next episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life.